So hello everybody and welcome to Desire the Realist Philosopher, also known as the Realist. So let's just jump right into this story. Democrat-run states plan to impose a mileage tax on people to combat climate change, which is ubiquitous, is normal, is reality. The climate changes all the time. It's called spring and summer and fall and winter. Change is natural. Of course, when these people say climate change, they mean it's getting hotter, right? They don't want to say that, though. The more specific they are, the more you can tie them down to any kind of specificity, the more they can be debunked. Jesus, when I was a kid, they were talking about global cooling and then global warming. And then, we had some time where it wasn't an issue and now it's back to warming. It's like, don't you people realize this is all just a control mechanism to put you on a leash? And they can justify all sorts of new laws and mandates and taxes that really are just there to impoverish you further so that you remain reliant upon the government. You're poor, you're a brokey, you don't have the ability to start a business, to compete with Amazon or Walmart, who eventually want to be 100% of the market. They want almost the entirety of the market to be focused, to be centralized in the hands of a very few people. And then once there's no more competition, they can charge whatever they want. They got you by the balls, and they don't even have to service you, sell you anything, because, hey, they're a private business, right? And if your social credit score isn't high enough, if you're not towing the party line, well, you're not getting groceries. And you got no alternatives. So this is all bunk. This is all crap. This is all nonsense, all lies. But, hey, it's a good way to make you poor, right? And in need, they want you poor and in need. Then they control you. Anyway, before I get into this story, I'd like to ask you to like and follow my YouTube channel if you have not already. Subscribing ain't hard. You just click the subscribe bell. Is it a bell? It's a button. Well, you hit the subscribe button, and you hit the notification bell. Not sure if anybody even hits the notification bell. Does it even work? My views would say no. When you shadow ban, they disable your notifications for 90% of your viewers and subscribers. Whether or not they have it activated. But anyway, leave a comment, subscribe, show me some love with super chats, or follow on Patreon, or contributing to my GoFundMe. All those links are in the description. Anyway, let's move on. 5 big questions about Democrat-run states planning to track motorists' car mileage. This is some goofy stuff, man. So apparently, if you drive over a certain amount of miles, you're going to pay a fee. Lovely. Or you're going to pay a fee regardless, and it's going to be based upon how many miles you drive. So in addition to having car insurance, you're going to have like a monthly or yearly fee you have to pay based upon how many miles you drove. I can't imagine how they would track this. I guess either it's self-reported, which I don't think is going to be the case considering how the government is, and they always look for some excuse to spend ever more money, or more likely there's going to be some kind of sticker, some kind of tag that you have to put on your vehicle, and probably going to be like sensors on every highway, every road, that will basically scan every single vehicle's barcode, put in a very specific part of your vehicle. If you don't have that, you can get pulled over and ticketed. If you're not displaying it properly so that the scanner can scan your vehicle. Yeah, that's going to cost a lot. Maybe even cancel out any gains they might have on this program in terms of taxation for many, many years. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the number and complexity and the infrastructure that will have to be created? This will create a whole nother department that is set up to solely to track mileage and tax people. That's going to be thousands, tens of thousands of jobs that are going to have to be created. At least if you include every single state. If every single or almost every single Democratic-run state does this, they're going to have to create an entire department to track this, and an entire infrastructure and software. Then you've got the hardware that they're going to have to set up on every highway and every road. It's going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Good. Great. They love that, right? More excuses to borrow more money from the Federal Reserve, who will just print up more funny money and steal the value from the money you have now, which is yet another tax. Great, 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 great. Yeah. You're paying for this, whether you're driving or not. All right, so several Democratic-led states, believe me, it's going to be all of them, are exploring new ways to monitor vehicle mileage as they work toward climate goals. What climate goals? Number one, the whole 97% of climate scientists is BS. They sent like a questionnaire or something to 100% of climate scientists. 3% of them actually replied. And of that 3% that replied, 97% of that 3% said human beings might be contributing in a negative way to climate change. And that's where that 97% figure comes in. They were the vast majority of the 97% of that 3% of total climate scientists that did comment, they weren't even willing to say is, because there's no evidence. They just say might. And here we are now with taxes based upon this BS. Made up bunk, mumbo jumbo. And most people don't even know is bunk. They believe it. Take it on faith, like religion. Interesting. Yeah, work toward climate goals. And shore up road maintenance budgets. Isn't that what the gas tax is for? Yeah, but you see, we're so bad at spending that money. And we use it for other stuff. We know that because we look at the state of the roads and they're terrible. So, we're just bad with the money. Bad at allocating it, bad at using it. And we use it for other things like social safety nets probably. Or just, graft, corruption. So we need more of it. Yeah. For more graft and corruption. Great. But the proposals are raising privacy and equity concerns. Who gets left behind? Do tell. Massachusetts lawmakers, oh God, are currently considering the Freedom to Move Act. Wouldn't it be freedom not to move? What do you mean freedom to... So yeah, they always give it this name that makes it sound like some kind of positive, or it's somehow contributing to the net good. The freedom to move. But I already have freedom to move. If you tax me on said movement, isn't that limiting my freedom? So they was couch it in a way that is in exact opposition to what it actually is. You're taxing my movement by charging me for every mile I drive. So how is that? You're not giving me freedom to move. You're questioning my freedom to move and limiting it in actual fact. Yeah. That's how you know this shit's bunkola, man. They always give it some kind of positive name. If they called it what it actually was, freedom not to move, limiting your freedom to move act, nobody would be for it. But they know that the vast majority of people, like 90+%, just read the headline. And of course, your lefties are actually all pro-government because they're a bunch of losers that don't want to work, want excuses for why they're such losers. And so they are, by default dependent upon the government. So they're for bigger government. Because in their mind, that means more support for them. And their lazy asses, which would require the state to track emissions in miles. Track miles via... Yeah, track emissions via how many miles they drove, which isn't even an accurate way to track emissions because different cars have different emissions. And already emissions on cars are reduced to such a low extent that the impact on the environment is really quite minimal. This isn't going to really mean anything anyway because of just how emission-friendly modern vehicles are. If you wanted to actually have any meaningful effect, you would have to impose something like this in India and China, with egregious violators of clean air. But anyway, and miles, track emissions and miles traveled while developing plans to reduce overall vehicle mileage. What? You want people to drive less? I don't understand. Wait. Aren't you just exchanging one tax for another? Well, people drive less, they use less gas. They use less gas, they're paying less gas tax. They pay less gas tax, you have less money for the roads. I don't know. Would you want them to drive more? No, because our real goal is to limit their freedom and to rob them even more. This is interesting. But, people already drive less because gas is so expensive. I mean, but don't you imagine that they're going to drive even less if you impose something like this? Like maybe a bare minimum? Maybe the people doing this figure people are already near their bare minimum, especially in places like California where gas is like $8 a gallon in some places. So, yeah, we've already got them driving the minimum. We just want to tax them some more. Similar efforts are underway in Minnesota, California, Oregon. If you're wondering why Oregon, Portland, which is what really runs the entire state. Yeah. And New York. That is right, people. If you didn't know this, cities have the overwhelming amount of power in a state. It's where the most people live. Yeah. State Senator Cynthia Cream. Interesting name. Who sponsors the Massachusetts bill, said the state should pursue additional strategies to reduce transportation emissions. So this is based on a flawed, faulty, unproven premise, again, that vehicle emissions are somehow leading to some kind of global warming, and that global warming is going to result in some kind of net negative damage to the planet and or humanity, which they don't seem to care about because they've killed, what, 1 billion babies since Roe vs. Wade? So, unalive. See, this is another reason why I'm not so YouTube friendly. I don't know all of the substitution words you're supposed to use, so most of my videos get shadow banned right off the bat because I'm using the wrong unfriendly language. I can't use the K word, kill. I gotta use unalive. I think they probably have that shadow banned as well. Anyway, transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gases. So what? It's good. There's more green. Yeah, greenhouse. You know what grows in greenhouses? Plants. And you know what those plants do? They take in those emissions and turn them into oxygen. So the planet will just get greener. I thought all you lefties loved green initiatives. Anyway, critics worry these programs could hurt rural families. Well, it's going to hurt the poor more than anybody else. You think the rich are going to curtail their driving, their vacationing, their private jetting? No. Raise privacy concerns. It's going to make it. By the way, this is going to make everything more expensive. Who's driving the most? Truckers. Oh my God. So not only is fuel at an all-time high, and I haven't seen it going down that much. It's going down little. I mean, I've seen some places around me now that are a little below $3 a gallon, but not much. There's still plenty of places where it's like $3.30, $3.40. But now you're going to tax people's miles as well. All you're going to do, you're going to raise the price of fuel. You're going to raise the price of goods and services because all this stuff has to be shipped and delivered using the roadways in many cases. How do you think that gasoline gets to the gas station? Some dude drives it in a tanker. You're going to raise the cost of almost everything. Oh, deliveries are going to get more expensive. What do you think? Amazon and Walmart delivery services are going to lower their prices or keep them the same when their cost of operation goes up? No. You think your Walmart subscription is going to stay low? You think your Walmart Prime is going to stay $14.99 a month and they're going to pay more to deliver crap because they're doing all these driving? No. This is so stupid, man. Raise privacy concerns and penalize people without good public transit options. There is no such thing as good public transit in America, okay? It's all garbage because it's run by the state. Here are the key questions these people have. I don't even know if I'm going to get into all these questions. I'm too tired. We'll see. 1, exactly how would mileage tracking work? The Massachusetts bill doesn't specify. Of course not. Because it's going to cost a bundle. And it's going to take 30 years of this program just to pay that off. And by the time they've paid off all this infrastructure and set it all up, it'll already be obsolete. And then they'll have to install new up-to-date infrastructure. So it doesn't specify how miles would be monitored or how car trips would be reduced. Well, I mean, you're raising the cost. They don't want to say that, but that's what it would be. You raise the cost, right? You're de-incentivizing people by making it more expensive. All right? That vagueness is fueling speculation and concern, as it should. Some states are testing different approaches. Yeah. Well, of course, then all this testing costs a lot of money. Minnesota uses, I called it. I didn't even read the story beforehand. I called it roadside sensors and data modeling to track aggregate vehicle miles. But different people drive different amounts of miles. What the hell are you going to do? Use self-reporting to then calculate some kind of round number, and then everybody's going to get charged X amount? But wouldn't that include truckers? Wouldn't that drastically inflate that average number? This is stupid. Oregon allows electric vehicle owners to enroll in a pay-per-mile system instead of paying a flat annual fee of $115. That's like a month of car insurance. So instead of paying 12 months of car insurance, are you paying 13? Yeah. That's just $115 less you're going to have for the year. Oh, pay-per-mile system. Why? Electric vehicles cost more. Electric vehicles are less friendly to the environment. Oh my God, yeah, let's make electric vehicles. They're so much less impactful, less harmful on the environment than those horrible gas-guzzling vehicles. Not with current emission standards, not with current catalytic converters, not with the stringent standards that gas vehicles have to meet, not with the amount of fossil fuels you have to put into building these vehicles, digging up all of those precious earth minerals to make that ginormous battery in the car. When you break down all of the fossil fuels that go into the battery, the construction, and the fueling of the vehicle, because what do you think they're burning to get that electricity? Coal, you idiots! That's a fossil fuel, and it's the worst one. These electric vehicles actually are more harmful to the environment, at least insofar as the metrics that these people use to measure harm. Massachusetts Senator Mike Barrett has proposed requiring odometers to be checked during annual vehicle inspections. There you go. Yeah. So they're going to check your odometer. What's going to happen? You're going to have lots of black market activity, lots of, odometer pirates, lots of people selling their services on the black market, lots of, software, hardware, plug-in devices that will allow you to manipulate, alter your odometer mileage, okay? People are going to find ways around this crap. And if they don't, if they're too much of a normie, well, guess what? They're going to pay a shit ton of tax at the end of the year for how many miles they drove. Yeah. And of course, you're going to have a whole new cult growing up, a whole new virtue signaling sector of the population touting their mileage. So probably be factored into some kind of social credit score as well. I'm a good citizen. I only drove me 5,000 miles this year. So stupid. Anyway, so insofar as the roadside sender approach, it collects general traffic data without identifying individual drivers. I don't believe that. The odometer check method raises questions about how states would distinguish state from out-of-state driving. Okay, or whether drivers game the system. Oh, like if they drove in a state next door that didn't have this tax? Well, it remains unclear whether states would eventually need more detailed tracking systems to fairly implement mileage-based fees. More detailed tracking? So they know where you're driving? They know where you're going? Oh, yeah, I'm sure this system of sensors that are everywhere, keyed to the barcode on your car, which is personally identifying, I'm sure they wouldn't use this data in any nefarious way, like to track your movements, right? No, it would never be used in that way. Is this about climate change or budget holes? Well, neither, really. In the end, it's about control. The bills are framed as climate policy, but there's a significant fiscal component that often gets less attention. States face a gas tax funding challenge. You don't say. Yeah, imagine that. Biden fights a war against fossil fuels for 4 years, won't give any new leases on federal land for drilling. And the majority of undeveloped, undrilled land in America is on federal land, and the prices go way, way up. And he cuts that pipeline, that Canadian pipeline, right? He does everything he can to drive the cost up. And people are buying less gas. Yeah. As vehicles become more fuel efficient, they don't. When I was a kid, cars would get 50, 60 miles to the gallon. They're making them less fuel efficient, not more. My dad had a car. It was like a Toyota Starlet. Thing got like 62 to 63 miles to the gallon. Cars used to be more gas efficient, actually. Used to have more gas efficient options. Give me a break. And electric vehicle adoption grows. Gas tax revenues are declining. Meanwhile, electric vehicles are heavier than traditional cars, and cars more wear and tear on roads. Yeah, so you push this idea of electric vehicles better, less taxes to repair the additional damage they do to the roads. Vehicles, they're heavier than cars, the more wear and tear on roads and bridges, while contributing nothing to the gas tax that funds repairs. Yeah. Anyway, Cream's perspective. What a name. Her office says the Massachusetts bill focuses on expanding transportation options to align with net zero goals. So she's a big giant commie. Net zero is impossible because you have no control of China, which is 25% of the world population. Is it 20 or is it 15 now? But you have no control of India and China. India and China combined, it's more than a quarter of the population. And they're responsible for more than a quarter of the greenhouse emissions. So limiting the greenhouse emissions in Western countries won't do anything because they're already the lowest. That's where they're the lowest. So you're focusing your efforts on reducing greenhouse emissions in places where they're really, really low. That's stupid. All right, what's next? Number 3, what about people without transit alternatives? Yeah. What about them? By the way, anybody out there want to cram themselves onto a New York subway? Well, most people in New York walk anyway, or take the subway regardless. But yeah. So this would give some places an excuse, or dare I say, a need for more public transportation. Anybody think that's a good thing? I don't. More dependency on the government, right? This geographic divide is where the debate gets heated. Senator Cream, Representative Affluent, Wellesley, and Brookline near Boston. There are areas with extensive public transportation. But residents in places like Sterling, Massachusetts, pushed back hard on social media. Yeah, but you see, they're not the majority. Most of the people you see live in the cities, so she represents their interests, not yours. You country bumpkins, you. With one calling it a money grab. Yeah. This is going to affect the poor more than anything else. Not going to affect the rich. They don't care. They got money to burn. Residents complain on social media the legislation would penalize people without access to public transportation. Yeah, you live out on a farm in the boonies. There ain't no buses, except Greyhound. Greyhound bus comes through once a day. Oh, well, that'll help. Access to public transportation. Yeah, I needed to go to work, but I have to sleep at work overnight, so I might as well live there in the city, where all the jobs are. Yeah, not in the country. And families who cannot use buses or the subway to bring children to school appointments, or who plan to take their cars on vacation. You're going to need more money for school buses. They're going to have to drive further, take longer to get you to school. For rural residents, late shift workers, or people in transit deserts, a car isn't optional. Yeah, it's how we get to work, medical appointments, or the grocery store. If mileage reduction comes through fees, or what some critics fear could become caps, these residents worry they'll bear a disproportional burden. Well, they would, right? Yeah. How do you reduce vehicle emissions without penalizing people who have no realistic alternative to driving? You don't? Well, I mean, you could have more stringent emission standards, but I don't know how much more stringent they could get. I don't think people realize just how close to net zero emissions cars are. They're very, very, very small amount of emissions already. If you impose more, anybody ever heard of diminishing returns? At the same time, to get any kind of reduction in emissions would cost so much, you're going to double the cost of a car. Which that in and of itself would reduce people getting around because they can't have a car because they can't afford a car the same way they can't afford a house. I wonder if that's the goal. Yeah. Own nothing, be happy. Yeah. Number 4, are electric vehicles creating a fairness problem? By the way, electric vehicles cost way more than gas vehicles. But anyway, And if everybody adopted electric vehicles, and if we actually had the infrastructure to support everybody having an electric vehicle, which we don't, that would actually increase emissions. Here's an irony at the heart of these proposals. The vehicles that are supposed to solve the climate problem are creating a new infrastructure funding challenge. I called it. Yeah. But of course, if that did become the case, well, we need more money to create and upgrade the infrastructure. It'll only cost $50 trillion. You people out there, you mouth-breathing morons, you should be willing to pay the price to save the planet, even though this just increases global emissions. I thought that was the goal. I thought the opposite was the goal, to decrease them. No. The real goal is to impoverish you. The real goal is to make you a poor mofo. Electric vehicles are heavier than gas-powered cars because the batteries have significant weight. They cause more stress to roads, bridges. Yeah, you already said that. Yet in many states, EV owners contribute nothing to gas taxes. Yeah. Correct. Because EVs don't buy gasoline, their drivers don't pay gas taxes at the pump. Just make them pay a, carbon tax, right? Specifically for those vehicles. Well, it's mainly the rich. We don't want to tick them off too much. Because a lot of them still have gas-powered vehicles, too. And they drive their electric vehicle for fun. They don't want to be double taxed. Even though they can afford it, we don't want to piss them off. Yeah. It's one of the reasons proposals like Barrett's mileage-based tax are being discussed in Massachusetts. Jesus. Yeah. Just pure mileage tax. Lovely. As EV adoption grows, the gas tax model becomes increasingly unsustainable. Yeah. How about you spend our money better? How about that? How about you stop being so wasteful? No. Can't have that. We need to raise more money, right? We need to be very wasteful because most of that waste is graft. Most of it's corruption-based. Because EVs don't, and we got to be able to buy those votes, right? With those overly funded, bloated social safety nets. Because EVs don't buy gasoline, their drivers, we know that already. All right, Oregon has already addressed this by allowing EV owners to opt into pay per mile. Yeah, we already said that. Okay, number 5. Where does the money go? Yeah, I'd love to know that. Can we have audits of all these states on a yearly basis? No. Even if we did, what would that come to, right? It would just be the police policing the police. Wouldn't tell you nothing. Minnesota and other states say mileage fees would fund road maintenance. Okay. Massachusetts bill emphasizes expanding public transportation. See, I called it. Oh, we just need an excuse for public transport. More of that. Jesus. Yeah, more waste, right? Every publicly funded transportation system in America loses money. They're all a net negative. But here's the timing problem. If you make driving more expensive, yeah, that's a real problem. Or difficult before viable transport alternatives exist, what happens to the commuters in the interim? They lose their jobs. But who cares? We don't care. That just means more people need social safety nets, and they're going to vote Democrat, right? Yeah. Infrastructure projects take years or decades. Yeah. Like that train in California, $100 billion. It's nowhere near completion. The MBTA and other similar systems in other states already struggle with delays, safety issues, capacity constraints. Residents want to know, will new transit options be in place before mileage restrictions take place? By the way, how are you going to fund this to the extent you don't have oversaturation? You know how many people would be forced into public transportation if you implement something like this? A lot. I mean, are there enough buses and trains to support that much of an increase? Does the infrastructure exist? No. But you'll own nothing and be happy. I can be happy squeezed onto a bus like a sardine, man, for 2 hours a day. Oh my God, this is just crazy. The name is so absurd. It sounds like the only thing that this act is doing is taking away my freedom. By taking away my options. Have a car, or take public transport, or walk, or ride a bike. Now, no, you can't have a car. Too expensive. First they made houses too expensive. Now they're going to make cars too expensive. What's next? The Freedom to Move Act calls for Massachusetts to expand public. Are we going to be a country like China, where everybody's riding around on a scooter, which is also illegal, and they're constantly getting stolen by the cops? Oh, excuse me. They're being, the cops are legally taking your vehicle. Yeah. What option do you have now? You walk or you take the crowded metro or bus? Freedom to Move Act calls for Massachusetts to expand public transportation. Well, you're not going to have a choice, but doesn't specify timelines or guarantees about when improved service would be available. By the way, this is the government. We know how bad they do everything. Anybody out there think that they're going to be able to increase the number of buses and trains to an extent where it's going to be able to support the vastly increased number of commuters? I don't think so. This is going to create a whole host of new problems. I mean, number one, you're going to be spending, instead of spending your money on a car, you're going to be spending it on public transport. You're going to be increasing the amount of time and effort it takes to get to work. You think you're going to be bringing in new money? I mean, people are going to be giving up cars altogether in exchange for, bus, trains, and then when you don't have any options, what's going to happen? Are they going to raise the cost of the bus, the train, the plane? Now your options become limited. Then your job options also become limited because now you can't work where you want, where you need to. Maybe the bus doesn't go there. Maybe the plane or the train doesn't go there. So this doesn't seem to do anything in my mind except reduce your options and your ability to move about freely and work freely. And by the way, what about all the people that make their living, say in the gig economy? Oh, they're screwed, especially if it's a per mile charge. Holy crap. You got people driving 1,000 miles a week. And again, this is just going to drive up any ancillary costs. Everything's going to go up in price. Are they going to exempt people, say, that are driving commercially? If not, cost of transportation is going to go up wildly. How many people are going to be able to stay in business? Already, a lot of these transport companies are just making razor-thin margins. You drive up their costs even more by implementing some kind of mileage cost. Many of them are going to go out of business. And then the ones that remain, less competition, their costs are going to go up. They're going to be able to charge more. They're going to have to charge more because the cost of moving goods and services about has gone up. And then who do you think is going to pay? Not them, you! At the checkout. Oh, this is stupid, man. Again, all this is about, all this climate crap is about, is making you poorer, taking money out of your pocket. How do these people make their money? How do they stay in power? By not having to compete with new entrepreneurs in the free market. What do you think COVID was about? Did you know that 75% of small businesses shut down operation because of COVID? You want to know how many came back? Most didn't. So COVID was all about shutting down small businesses. This is all about shutting down small businesses. They want to have just a handful of large corporations like Weyland-Yutani and the frickin' Alien movies, and thereby they got you by the balls, yo. They can control you through that private corporation that they give sweetheart deals to, and then that corporation does what the government can't, what the Constitution says the government can't, but they do it through back alley, under the table dealing and wheeling. We'll let you, operate here. We'll give you some tax exemptions for 10 years, and after that, you'll only be taxed at half. We'll give you a real good sweetheart deal on property taxes, but you gotta follow our social credit score. You gotta do this, that, and the other, or they can't buy from you. Biden tried to do it with his, Ministry of Truth and colluding with all the social media companies. Hey, we'll let you operate freely so long as you don't let these people have voices. This person's problematic. They said something we didn't like about Biden, so you got to censor them or we're going to come down hard on you. Yeah, this is a real good idea. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section. Am I wrong? Am I totally off base? Is this not a move to gain more power and control and central ever more of the market into fewer controlled by the government, or at least manipulated to a certain extent by the government's hands, i.e. real fascism? Or am I way off base in that view? Is this not a power grab by the government? Is this not just another way to impoverish you and make you poorer so that you can't free yourself from the government teat and not have to rely on the government, which would then mean the government would by necessity grow smaller? If enough people didn't need it, then they might actually vote to shrink it. Can't have that. Got to make you poor as possible, so you need us. You can't rely on yourself. Oh, no. God forbid, there be competition out there in the free market, so we got to keep that as rarefied as possible as well. We got to create as many barriers as possible for people to start their own businesses and become self-sufficient. And we also don't want them competing with the people out there in the free market now, those big corporations that, we control and manipulate via the river of regulations they have to go through if they want to operate in our jurisdiction. But let me know what you think in the comment section, and please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not already. Give me a thumbs up, hit that notification bell. I don't know if it even works for my channel, but you can try. And leave a comment. And on that note, I'm out of here. I am the Realist Philosopher, and I wish you all a good and pleasant day. Take care.